What's up, everybody? It is early in the morning right now. It is 6 a.m., but the NFL never sleeps. George Pickens sent in a massive trade over to the Dallas Cowboys for a third and fifth round pick. And while I have my opinions on this trade for the Steelers, I'm more focusing on how this affects the Dallas Cowboys and why this is such a fantastic trade that makes this team better immediately. Now, before we get into the actual film for Pickens, I first want to lay out what you're actually going to get from him as a receiver if you're a Cowboys fan, because I'm sure you're hearing a lot of things. You've got some people on Twitter saying this is a wide receiver one level player, and some people who are much lower on Pickens. I'm somewhere in the middle. No, I don't think George Pickens is some kind of wide receiver one. He has wide receiver one traits, don't get me wrong, but that's not something I ever think he'll be because he has a role in this league. He's not a receiver who's able to do everything. He's not a receiver who's able to go over the middle of the field. In fact, he has some of the worst stats that you can imagine on routes that are not down the sideline, deep down the field. On intermediate targets, which is 10 to 19 yards down the field, George Pickens was 72nd in efficiency and 72nd in separation rating. This is not a separator by any means. And it's just as bad, if not a little worse, for short targets, where he's 70th in efficiency and 75th in separation rating. But that's the beautiful thing about him going to a team like Dallas. He doesn't need to be a wide receiver one. He doesn't need to be a separator. All he needs to be is George Pickens, the jump ball specialist, because they have a guy named CeeDee Lamb there as their number one option. Whether CeeDee's lining up on the outside or he's lining up from the slot, wherever they align him, CeeDee Lamb is going to demand attention, whether that means throwing a safety over the top of him, whether that means just straight up bracketing or double teaming him. It's going to create one-on-one opportunities for George Pickens, and that's exactly where he wants to be. A one-on-one opportunity like the Steelers find George Pickens in on this play right here. The Steelers send number 11 in motion. They're under center. This turns into play action. Pre-snap, there's two high safeties. Post-snap, this high safety is going to come down to play a robber in the middle of the field. We've got one high safety. They're in zone, deep thirds by the two corners. It's cover three. And even though 26 here, this corner covering George Pickens, who's at the bottom of the screen, is playing off. He's playing zone. He's playing deep, and he stays over the top of Pickens his entire route because Russell Wilson sees that this safety is not coming over to help George Pickens. Wilson is just going to throw up a moon ball, and George Pickens is going to come down with it. Because there's just straight up not many receivers in the NFL who have better hands or better ball tracking deep down the field than Pickens. It is not at all a stretch to say that George Pickens is the best, the singular best contested catch receiver in the NFL that we're going to see here on this play, and it's going to help the Cowboys once they get into the red zone, once the field condenses. On this play, the Commanders are going to be sending a late blitz here with Frankie Louvu, the linebacker, and due to this late blitz, George Pickens, who's lined up here in the slot, is going to have man coverage with the nickel defender. And into this man coverage, Pickens is going to be running a slot fade. Russell Wilson sees the blitz, knows the coverage that he has, and immediately throws this ball up to Pickens, and as you can see, incredible catch. And as we've already gone over with Pickens, he is not somebody who's going to create separation. He didn't create any separation on that route, but because he has such a big catch radius with such fantastic hands, he's able to make fantastic grabs like that despite somebody being in his hip pocket. And while I wouldn't label Pickens a yards after catch threat, he does have some juice. He's not just some big jump ball receiver who gets the ball in his hands and he can't do anything. No, if he can get into the open field, he has the opportunity to make someone miss. He has the opportunity to outrun somebody to the end zone. Like here, on this play against the Ravens, Pickens is lined up at the top of the screen. He's just running a fade up the sideline. Meanwhile, the Ravens are in too high. This just turns into Tampa 2. And in Tampa 2, we have something called a hole shot. And what a hole shot is it's the window between the flat defender, which is the corner in Tampa 2, aka Wiggins here, and the safety, the high safety on that side of the field. There's a small window there that Russell Wilson finds, dropped perfectly for being honest, and from that point on, George Pickens is able to spin out of it, make somebody miss, get his way into the end zone for a touchdown. Here's another example of Pickens' run after catch ability. Pittsburgh did like to use him a lot in the screen game here, as they do. Catches the ball, gets out in space, makes somebody miss, races his way towards the end zone. There's not a whole lot of analysis to get in there. All I'm saying is George Pickens has the juice to do something after the catch once he gets the ball in his hands. But it's not just about what Pickens can do for you with the ball in his hands. There's also an element of Pickens' game that he can help you without the ball in his hands, and that's he is a fantastic blocker, one of the best blocking receivers we have in the NFL today. Here he is, lined up in the slot. It's press man coverage. However, it's a run, and George Pickens is going to make sure this nickel knows that it's a running play. Puts him on his ass, for lack of a better term. I know it doesn't really result in helping the run play here, but you see how great of a blocker he is. You see that play strength. So on paper, I really do think you have the perfect complement to CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is going to work from the outside, from the slot. He's going to get the ball in his hands first and foremost. He is their number one option, and being their number one option means the attention's going to be on him. There's going to be a safety over the top of him. You have to. There's going to be a double team, bracketing, etc. And that is going to leave George Pickens one-on-one to do what he does best. And that is go up and catch the football. Dak is always better when he has more weapons to throw to, when he can look at CeeDee Lamb, realize that's not open, he's under pressure, flips his hips to the other side of the field and see George Pickens deep down there. He's going to throw it up, and George Pickens is going to make a great play. And not only can Pickens do that, he can provide in this Dallas Cowboys run game, which you know they're going to want to emphasize with their new head coach. So yes, I think this is a match made in heaven. Jerry Jones, you have to give credit where credit is due. He made this Dallas Cowboys team better for a pretty good price in my eyes. That is going to be it for today's film review. This is my first time kind of doing something like this, so if you enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments, and if you did enjoy it, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to grow more. I hope you all have a fantastic day.